And what's up, fight fans? Welcome to episode 4 of Stoner versus Stoner. I'm here with my partner in crime, the one that gives credibility to our podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Don Stoner.
What's up, everybody?
He's a jiu-jitsu black belt as well as a competitor on Submission Underground, Chael Sonnen's jiu-jitsu tournament. Don, go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find you as far as your jiu-jitsu abilities.
You can find me on Instagram at dstonerjitsu_LWJJ. You can find me on Facebook at Don Stoner. You can find me on the internet, Lone Wolf Jiu-Jitsu Academy. If you're ever in the Portland area, please come by, train, and try to put me in a choke.
It sounds like one of those old school open dojo challenges. Fight me for my belt. So we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot coming up pretty soon. A lot has already happened. UFC Fight Night 173 just happened last, was that Saturday? We had Figueiredo versus Benavidez in a shocking fight. Man, that was fireworks. Don, what do you think of the fight that we saw that night?
That fight was so cool. Figueiredo was just on fire. You know, he's such an animal, so well-rounded, jiu-jitsu black belt, high level competitor in jiu-jitsu. And, just really surprised to see him just dominate Benavidez. I mean, few guys can dominate Benavidez the way that he did. And it was just an amazing fight. Hats off to Figueiredo. He's just so well-rounded, so powerful for that weight class, flyweight. And man, he hits like a welterweight. It's just crazy, his power. And his submissions are on point too. So I think he's going to be really tough for any of these guys to take the title away from him. And I can see him being a champion for a while if he keeps fighting like that.
Absolutely. Figueiredo just generates so much torque in such a small amount of space. You know, there's a few fighters that are able to just really dig in with their hips. There's the technique of squashing your bug when you throw your hooks, making sure that you pivot on that foot. Figueiredo just has that down to a level of mastery where he can just generate so much power in such a small space. And with the controversy of their last fight, you could tell Figueiredo really wanted to come out and make a statement. I think that he was aware that he's kind of got Benavidez outclassed, and with the world not convinced of it, I think he was kind of insulted. I think we saw a little bit more of an angry Figueiredo than we would normally see, and a little bit more aggressive. He was definitely looking to finish that fight in the first couple rounds. There's no mistaking that. The first fight with the illegal knee that happened, it was a hot one. He came in real hot. Anytime you're fighting for a championship or contendership, you're going to get some of those flare-ups with slips and some intensity. But I think he did a really good job of being a little bit more patient this time and really capitalizing on what was given to him instead of just kind of forcing opportunities.
No doubt, and I mean, how many times did Figueiredo, I don't know how you Figueroa.
Just call him Fig. Figgy. What's up, Fig?
How many times did Big Fig put Benavidez on his butt? I mean, he just kept knocking him down over and over. And Benavidez is a powerful guy too for flyweight.
Yeah, he was giving him a lesson in gravity too. We could call him Fig Newton. Sorry for the puns, guys. I'm a comedian. It's the best of what I can do. Also on the card, we did have some other really good fights go down. Jack Hermansson versus Kevin Gastelum. That was a huge one just because of the fact that, pardon me, Kevin Gastelum coming off a couple losses, really needed a victory. Jack Hermansson coming off some victories on his climb to the top 5 in the runnings for the belt. A really surprisingly quick fight. I was not expecting that to be a round 1 submission nonetheless. What did you think when you saw that, Don?
Well, Hermansson first got my attention. Actually, when he got to the UFC, he was very dominant.
Hold on, fix your mic cord real quick. Getting a little fuzzy.
Oh,
Try to
can you hear me?
yeah, unplug it and plug it back in. It might help it out a little bit. Sorry, guys, technical difficulties. Thanks for sticking. This is live. That's what happens.
Test one.
Ooh, it sounded fuzzy. Go ahead and just use your laptop mic. Just go ahead and plug that.
Can you
We'll
hear
fix
me?
that later. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect. That'll do just fine.
Not
Sorry.
bad.
We were talking about Jack Hermanson. Were you expecting that to end so quickly?
I was not expecting that. Hermanson got my attention when he fought Jacare. And we all know how good Jacare is at jiu-jitsu. And he was able to control, nullify Jacare on the feet and on the ground. And that's what really led me to believe that he would take out Gaslam. As far as the fight with Gaslam goes, I was not expecting Gaslam to be susceptible to leg entanglements. I'm talking about heel hooks. Hermanson has really long legs. He's a tall fighter, and guys that know how to play the leg game like that are very, very dangerous. Gaslam was able to escape the first heel hook. He did a perfect defense, spun out of it, and then Hermanson slapped it on again, slapped on the outside heel hook, and then he did a really cool move where he actually trapped the opposite leg. So both legs were trapped. There was nowhere to go, and Gaslam tapped. I'm surprised at Gaslam. I don't know what happened to Gaslam. I used to love that guy, watch him on The Ultimate Fighter. He had so many great fights. But the guy is just he should not be a welterweight, a middleweight. He should be a welterweight. So I think he's already kind of out of his weight class. But I mean, no excuses on that point. It was an amazing fight on Hermanson, and Hermanson's now ranked 6th in the world, and he should be fighting a top 5 guy next. And I think 1 to 2 more fights, he should be right there in the title picture. He did call out Darren Till. I don't know if that's the right fight, but he needs that type of caliber of fight, his next fight, after what he did to Gaslam.
Well, he said that he wants the winner of Till and Whitaker, but of course the winner of Till and Whitaker wants the winner of Costa Adesanya, which, spoiler alert, just got previously announced. It was announced for September 19th, and much to Dana White's dismay, he was not ready for that to come out yet. He was pretty angry about some of the reporters who had stumbled across that information, but it looks like that's a go. September 19th is when we're going to see Costa and Adesanya mix it up, which this division, anywhere in the top 8, you could throw a dart and land on a prospective champion in the next couple of years. This is, this is just one of the most stacked divisions that we have, which is great because it used to be a division that was kind of a little lacking. You know, it was normally people that would go up a division or go down a division depending on where the popularity was swaying. But now we got some real contenders and some real meat in this division. So I think we're seeing a lot more people fighting within for the belt, and I'm really loving it. Any other fights on this card that stood out to you? I really liked watching Rafael Fiziev. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's a new fighter. He put on a striking clinic, but you know, who knows if that was just a mismatch of talent, or if it really was just the dog in him, because man, he showcased.
Yeah, it comes down to you have a lot of fighters now that are debuting in the UFC. You have a lot of fighters that have been on the shelf for 2 years, 1 year, and so fights like that, you just don't know what's going to happen, right? As far as that goes, I don't know his level yet. I need to see him against somebody better, but I was very impressed with Rafael. Extremely impressed.
Yeah, he had a great performance. And a couple of fight nights ago, we saw I believe he's a Russian fighter, Pochazka. He's another one I'm keeping my eye on, of these up and comers that are really just drilling some amazing new talent. I mean, it's one thing when you came from the age of specialists, where you would have a jiu-jitsu specialist that learned how to strike, or you had a striking specialist that learned how to roll, and now you're seeing a little bit more of like the blendings. But I think in the future, we're going to see a completely new martial art emerge as MMA as its own martial art.
No doubt.
Yeah, because with the scoring system, with the techniques, and with everything that's being integrated, I mean, I really feel like there's no other way for that to go. I mean, as a jiu-jitsu coach, Don, how do you feel in terms of the integration process? Has it made teaching more interesting, more difficult? What's it like?
Well, it's the first time ever that people come in wanting to learn MMA. You know, they want to learn MMA. They want to learn what they're seeing on TV. And for me, being specifically a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, I look for guys that tell me that they want to fight because I have the right people in place to foster them to do that. But it's such a long road to be an MMA fighter. When you start in your late 20s, your early 30s, now I'm seeing it more as the kids. The
Mhm.
kids that come in at 8, 9, 10, those are going to be the future champions of the sport. I don't see the later in life guys doing it and succeeding, which we've seen before, but it's a whole other thing. And you're talking about, if somebody wants to become an MMA fighter, it's like you have to learn 5 disciplines. You have to. It's not just like a thing where you can just say, hey, this guy's an MMA fighter. But um, most of the big gyms, like American Top Team where I train, they look for specialists, good wrestlers. They get a collegiate wrestler, they want him. If they get a boxer, an amateur boxer, a guy who's had 50 fights, that's who they want. And actually, interestingly enough, they're looking for NFL guys now. There's a couple guys that train that are from the NFL because after Greg Hardy's came over and some other guys from the NFL have came over, they're really interested in that because they know those guys know how to work hard. They know what it takes. They have the drive, and they know that they can mold them into an MMA guy.
Oh
So
yeah, let's not forget about the career of like Herschel Walker and Bob Sapp, people who've had some really high-end MMA careers. But that's the thing now, is that MMA is being considered to be a top-level sport finally. It used to be kind of like a back burner sport where you'd get a lot of people who, tried to make it to the NFL or tried to make it in collegiate wrestling, and they fell amongst the rafters, so they decided to do MMA and then ended up becoming a specialist in it. I think now we're going to see kids who are coming up that have that potential of being the next LeBron and being like, no, I'm a fighter. And now we're going to see kids that are professional fighters growing up instead of, imagine if one of the Williams sisters picked up MMA instead of a tennis racket.
ooh, I'd pick her against Cyborg if she had some skills.
Exactly. So, I think it's going to be a new dawn for the world of MMA in the next decade. We're going to see a lot of people considering MMA as the outlet for their athletic ability, which is going to change the sport drastically. Once that happens, we're going to. I mean, I don't know if you saw the training footage of I can't remember what San Francisco 49er it was, but it was a guy. He was just kicking the bag playfully, but he had some really tight Muay Thai technique, and his athletic ability was off the charts. I mean, I don't know what his level of training was, but just as an athlete, he looked like he was playing around and throwing techniques that were highly complex out there. It's really amazing how quickly some of these natural athletes can take to the sport, and it makes me wonder what they'd be capable of had this sport been their first option.
Yeah, it's a whole new level of sport, and it's so cool now with everything that's going on in the world. It's like, what else is there? There's only MMA. There's only MMA to watch, and so guys are now getting interested. Like, oh, I want to do that. I could do that. And so that's what we're seeing. And I think, yeah, over the next decade, I mean, even the next 5 years, because MMA now, the past few years, it's moved faster than it did the first 20 years, right? And that's just like evolution, but like it seems like every year it's like happening way faster than it did the year before. Like you're seeing guys who immediately when they retired to the NFL, boom, I'm going to NBA, right? Where before they'd have to wait around or whatever. Guys immediately after college wrestling, they're going to MMA. So it's just happening so much faster. And I mean, I don't know if there's going to be enough shows. We might have a show every 2 days if this sport blows up like it does. And you know what? Hey, I welcome it, brother.
Right, and there's something to be said for the satellite businesses too. ONE FC, Bellator. You know, if MMA really pops the way that it could, it doesn't have to be just one organization that's reaping off the benefits. Especially when you have multiple layers of talent like you do in fighting, where it's like, you know, sometimes the top 10 is the top 10 in UFC and the top 10 in the Bellator. You might have a guy or two in the Bellator top 10 that could fit inside the UFC top 10 had they got the right matchups on the come up. You know, there's a lot to be said about taking on fights that are within your skill level at the right time and having the right people see you at the wrong time. You know, I know it's true for comedy. It's got to be true for fighters as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know, it's like, you know, ONE FC. I'm not too hot on ONE FC yet, man. I've enjoyed a couple of their fights, but I'm just not right now. It's almost like they're taking guys that are a little past their prime, and they're trying to build it off of it. Where I think they should build more talent early, like the UFC does, and they do that with Asian and Thai fighters. They're not doing that with U.S. fighters, except for Gary Tonin. They signed Gary Tonin, who's for anybody who doesn't know Gary Tonin, he's like one of the best no-gi jiu-jitsu guys out there. So good. He's Gordon Ryan's training partner. He's everything in jiu-jitsu. I think he won third in Abu Dhabi. So they brought him in and they're kind of grooming him. But I want to see them do that more with the U.S. fighters. As far as Bellator goes, Bellator could be great because of all the talent that they're now taking. I just don't know the financial side of it because UFC is such a beast now, especially after that $4 billion deal or whatever. They're such a beast. They can swoop up any fighter that they want. So we'll see how it goes. I think down the road, 10 years from now, yeah, I do think Bellator's still going to be there. I don't know about ONE FC, but I think it's going to be UFC, Bellator, and maybe some more up and coming shows.
Well, I think that might be a part of ONE FC's market strategy. I think their whole goal is to really showcase the Asia fighters. There's a lot of Asian talent that isn't getting the nod that they deserve nationwide or worldwide, just because of the fact that there's just so much talent everywhere. And you know, Dana White can only go to so many events in so many places a year that I think you know a large portion of Asia's events get missed. And I think this is a great opportunity to bring in fighters that held a high rank in the UFC and to see how that Asian talent matches up. So when somebody like Eddie Alvarez walks in and gets seated within the first 2 rounds, you know, people start to look like, oh, maybe that cat's got some talent. You know, I know it's doing wonders for these fighters' careers just to have multiple opportunities too. I don't know if ONE FC is sustainable. They might not have the money to keep going, especially through this pandemic, because I know a lot of their money was coming from gate and not necessarily pay-per-view buys. A lot of it was just the live gate, people coming in. I know they had VIP sale settings and they probably had massive betting going on, which was probably something to be making a lot of money. You know, Singapore is big on betting. So, but we do have a UFC event coming up this Saturday. That's going to be UFC Fight Night 174. The main event's going to be Robert Whittaker, Darren Till. But we've got a few hit or misses on the list. Here we go. Let me go ahead and give you the look here. I don't know how to screen share, but me and Don did some pre-fight. Here's what we're going to do. So for every UFC event that comes up, we're going to go ahead on the main card, and we're going to pick our favorites, and we're going to keep a win-loss record between each other just so you know who to trust in your betting if you're trying to actually make some money off of fights. But we're going to go ahead and do a breakdown of who we think are going to win the main card fights and some reasons why. If we agree,
and I'll just let you guys know. Sorry, Chino.
No, go for it.
I'll let you guys know. Don Stoner's bets. You're either going to lose your ass or you're going to make a shitload of money because a lot of my bets are emotional. That's all I want to say.
He bets from the heart, and I'll bet from the wallet. That'll be my angle. If you want to bet with your heart, bet with your wallet. That'll be the 2 different angles. But So the way the record system is going to work is if we agree, it's going to be a push. Whether the fight whether we're right or wrong, we won't incorporate that to the record. That's just considered a push. It's only in the fights that we disagree on that we get a right or wrong that is incorporated into the record, just so these numbers don't get crazy, because we don't need 104 and 74 records. That's just ridiculous. So starting with the first fight, we have Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Peter Sabota. You have Alex Oliveira, the vet in the fight. Go ahead and explain your choice. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but let's hear it.
Oliveira, the Cowboy, man. He's a Muay Thai specialist. He's had so many great fights. He's so durable, and I just feel like his knowledge of the sport, his fight IQ, as it is just so high. And I believe that Oliveira is just a grinder. No matter where you get him, he's going to grind it out. And I think that's a really solid bet. So I'm going with the Brazilian Cowboy, also known as the Gaucho for all you Brazilians.
The Gaucho. That is a good bet. Money-wise, that actually sounds like the smarter bet, just because Oliveira's kind of proven himself against higher-end talent for a longer time. But I went with Peter Sabota, and here's why. He's a smother fighter. He's a smother and cover guy, and we've seen Oliveira in the past have a lot of problems with smother and cover fighters. He's the type of guy that uses moves that doesn't make any friends. He'll put his hand over your mouth. He'll step on your feet. He'll push you against the cage. He'll bully you. Oliveira, his leg kicks are amazing. You know, he's got a good rangefinder, but I just have a feeling that Peter's going to pick him up somewhere. And Oliveira's jiu-jitsu is tight, but Peter's smother is so heavy that I think it might be able to neutralize a lot of his hip angles for his jiu-jitsu. But it's a fight. It's a fight for a reason. That one's
bring up some points. Yeah, you bring up some great points on that. I just, when we're talking about a dirty fighter, a guy who's, I think that goes to Oliveira. If those two met in the back alley of somewhere and, you know, wherever, that goes to Oliveira. And Sabato's talking about all the things in quarantine. He has a new gym. He has a new business. He has 2 new kids. And, you know, I think that's going to wear a lot of, you know, how much time is he spending training? Because I know how much time it takes to run a gym. I know how much time it takes to do all these things. Not be a parent, but I work with enough parents that I know that's another job in itself. And Oliveira is just a type of guy where he just has a bunch of tarps in his backyard, and he has 50 black belts and Muay Thai guys, and they spar all day.
Yeah, they spar viciously in Brazil too. It's not a friendly type of sparring. Training partners get injured all the time. I agree. It's going to be a great fight. It could go either way. But that should be a good split. I'm glad that we disagree on some things. It makes for interesting podcasting. Next fight, we have Paul Craig. And do you want to pronounce this name? Because I don't know. Gazimirov Antiglugov. We both picked Paul Craig. I think it's because it was the easier one to say. Do you have what's your reason for Paul Craig other than he's just the more tailed, more filmed fighter?
It was really based on records. The Asmarov guy, however you say his name, it looks like a lot of his wins were by submission. Mm-hmm. And I don't see too many losses by submission on Paul Craig. But I don't know. I haven't seen he's Russian, so I haven't seen the Russian guy too much. I've actually never seen his fight before, but I've seen Paul Craig fight, and you know, he's very, very good. He's very durable. He's a UK fighter. He's a Scottish fighter. Those guys never give up. Those guys are very well-rounded, and I know he has a good ground game too. So I picked him based on the ground game. I think it'll be decided in the ground, that one, if I'm not mistaken, by ground and pound. I don't think Gazimirov can submit Paul Craig, and I think Craig will pound him out. Would be my guess on that one.
Yeah, I think I've had this thought that a lot of these fighters that are coming in that we haven't heard of, I think a lot of them are being brought in out of convenience for the fact that the fights are going on in Dubai. the market's kind of closed for the fighters. As far as what's within reach, Russia, Middle East, maybe some of the Western Asian countries we'll see a little bit more of. We saw some Kazakhstan fighters. We saw, I think we're seeing a lot of fighters from these areas just out of sheer necessity. We need more fighters to fill the ranks. And I don't know how game this guy is. We don't know much about him, but we do know that Paul Craig is game. So I think that's why I picked him, is that I just know that regardless of his talent and technique, he's game. And I mean, I think we saw it in a couple of UFCs ago where, the young guy who wasn't ready for the full 3 rounds of the fight gave up after the second. Some of these fighters, if you're not ready, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when you're not ready to step into a ring. So interesting fight though. Who knows? He could be the next Wei Lee coming out of nowhere and just whooping on champs. So we'll see. The next fight after that, I'm glad we disagree on this one, because I feel like we can both defend our points on this. It's Carla Esparza versus Maria Rodriguez. You pick Carla, I pick Marina. Do you want to explain yourself first, or shall I?
Go for it, brother.
All right. I'm easily picking Marina in this one just because of what we've seen her do in her past 3 fights. Good gravy, this lady can throw. She can throw, she can roll, she can defend. I love Carla Esparza. I love watching her fight. She's had a decent win-loss ratio over the past couple of years, but she doesn't quit. She doesn't quit ever, but she does have a tendency to kind of slow in the later rounds when Marina is a second and third round genius. The first round, she kind of feels you out. Next round will even take some shots from you. And then she really piles it on you within the second and third rounds. So I just think it's a bad matchup for Carla. She's got a heavy wrestling style. And Marina is game as a wrestler, but if you get her on the ground, you're in danger. If you fight her standing, you're in danger. I just think she has a little bit more tools. So let's hear the Esparza side.
Esparza, well, first off, I've trained with Carla back in the day before she was in the UFC, and I was actually kind of her quasi jiu-jitsu coach, whatever, main training partner, way back before she was in the UFC. Right when she got out of college, she came to the Machado Academy, and she wanted to train with us to get up on her jiu-jitsu. And even from back then I could just tell hardly any women or men could stop her takedowns. And that's what we've seen in her UFC career. So I don't know too much about Marina except the fact that she's a striker, she's a brawler. But Carla has more experience in the UFC against higher caliber opponents, championship level fights. She was a champion in the UFC, and she won the title. And you can see against ladies like Claudia Gadelha and other ladies who have power in their hands. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they don't have as much power as Marina, but Carla's takedown is so hard to stop, and she's a grinder, man, and she has jiu-jitsu. She doesn't get submitted. She doesn't fall into these traps. She has jiu-jitsu now. She's had enough time to evolve in the game. She knows what to do and how to stay safe. And she can box too, but the thing I like about her is she doesn't get into these battles where, it's kind of like how Paige loses sometimes. She just goes in and just tries to fight fire with fire. Carla's just going to duck under that punch, take her down, grind her against the cage, elbows, pass guard, get into side control, get into half guard. She likes to stay in half guard and pound her out. And I think that's what we're going to see in the fight. I think Carla's at a different level. She's way too experienced, and experience in this game it means a lot. And especially wrestling. I mean, I don't know Marina's wrestling accolades, but if she doesn't, at least she has to be training with some NCAA level wrestlers or some really good wrestlers to be able to stop that shot, because Carla could take her down. And I think she will take her down. I think it's going to be unanimous decision like a lot of Carla's fights, and she's just going to pound her out.
Yeah, Carla does have an amazing amount of pressure that she's able to put on. From what I've seen from Marina's jiu-jitsu, it looks really solid. I don't know if she's a black belt, but I do know that she does have a solid game off her back. which could mean some complications for a wrestler. But you're right, Carla Esparza has the world of experience behind her back. Being a former champion, that's a huge feather in her cap for as far as ring experience and keeping it together. Marina has just looked so convincingly good to me in her past couple fights that I think that her momentum might take her deeper into the fight than assumedly her talent. Maybe we'll see. Odds are good too as far as Vegas betting goes. That one's pretty close to being 50-50. The next fight we have Fabricio Verdum versus Alexander Gustafsson. We both picked Gustafsson. That surprises me. As you being the jiu-jitsu guy, I figured you would dig in your heels a little bit with the Verdum. Let's go ahead and unbox this a little bit.
Well, Verdum, obviously he beat Fedor Emelianenko, my favorite fighter ever, by that amazing submission he got on Fedor, and then he did that again in the UFC. He's had championship level fights in the UFC, but I think when you're talking about the striking game and you're talking about somebody who's as fast as Gustafsson, that's really trouble with Verdum. Gustafsson came out and said that he beat up Verdum in the training room, and that's not always a great indicator, because what happens in training doesn't always happen in the cage. But I truly think Verdum's only chance is to sub Gustafsson out, and we have not seen Gustafsson get subbed out in a while, if I'm not mistaken. Gustafsson's fought John Jones, had a close fight with John Jones. Some people thought he possibly won that. So I just see him moving around, throwing that jab, wearing Verdum down. Verdum gets tired. Verdum gets desperate. Verdum shoots in on some sloppy shit, maybe tries to pull guard and do his butt flop guard stuff, which is just not going to work against Gustafsson. Gustafsson's just gonna time him. Anytime Gustafsson sees the head, he hits and he touches you. And for a heavyweight, that is danger for a lot of heavyweights. The question becomes, Gustafsson against a power puncher like Ngannou, then it's a different fight. But if you're talking about Verdum, I'm not worried about Verdum knocking out Gustafsson. I'm more thinking about submission, and I don't think he can catch Gustafsson. I think Gustafsson is just going to outpoint him, outwork him.
Yeah, I think it just really pertains to threat. Gustafsson is only in a threat in one position of the fight, or one place of the fight. Meanwhile, Fabricio Verdum is in danger the entire fight. He's in danger on his feet. He's in danger trying to clinch him up. He's in danger trying to even pull guard, because if Gustafsson can get that top distance separation and start laying some leather on him from the ground, we've seen Fabricio Verdum succumb to that before. He doesn't handle ground and pound as well as he could, being as heavy of a jiu-jitsu specialist he is. Fabricio Verdum Gustafsson going up a weight class. Normally, I would pick the person who's already a heavyweight. However, he's a middle puncher, meaning he throws everything down the pipe. He doesn't take a lot of risky chances. And Fabricio Verdum just doesn't have the level of striking to compete with, even on a defensive level. I think he's going to be used to the boxing gloves in training. He's going to try to take up his usual blocks. And with those 4-ounce gloves, those jabs and crosses sneak through really quick, especially when you start to get tired, and especially when you got somebody like Gustafsson who knows how to take that side angle on you and really pick you apart. I think the reason he got close to beating Jones is because we saw not so focused Jones, but at the same time we saw Gustafsson at his best game, and we saw how talented he can be. And he's coming off a couple losses, doesn't feel good about it. He's pretty close to retirement, and I think this might be his last ditch effort to kind of make a final soft landing for his career. So I think Fabricio Verdum's a good challenge for him. At the same time, I think it's a safer one in the fact that he's not going to get, KTFO. He's not risking a serious concussion fighting Fabricio Verdum.
Yeah, he just needs to be careful on the kicks. He needs to be careful on the kicks, that Verdum doesn't catch a kick, land on top. Because if Verdum does get on top, Gustafsson is most likely going to get finished if there's enough time in the round.
Especially if he catches them dry. If he catches them dry in the first round, that's all she wrote. Verdum is the best when it comes to that. He's like an octopus. He has limbs that come out of nowhere. He's amazingly talented and gifted. After that, we have a battle of the legends. We got Shogun, Mauricio Hua, fighting Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. We have different choices on that. I'm picking Shogun. You're picking Lil Nog. Do you wanna go ahead and explain that one? How does that play out to you?
Man, it plays out. I think that Rogerio comes out, boxes him up, and Rogerio makes the adjustments to outbox. I think it's going to come down to boxing, and it's going to come down to possible grappling. And I think that now, because this is going to be the third time they fought, Shogun's already beat him twice.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that Rogerio is going to make the adjustments needed to find out how he's going to get around the kicks. The problem there is when a guy beats you twice, you're mentally defeated. I mean,
mm-hmm.
But hey, this is like a Pride battle. This is like something you see in Pride FC. These are two legends, guys. I mean, if you're going to watch Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, hey, if you're going to watch Rampage and Vanderlei, that's what type of fight this is. This is Pride FC. These are two legends in the game that could easily be on the top of any pay-per-view fighting each other, and it's going to be an amazing fight. It's going to be a great fight, and I just, for some reason, I think Lil Nog's going to make the adjustment, and maybe I think it's also because Shogun's last couple fights have been kind of, he's on and off. It's a crazy thing about Shogun is, he was in those Pride days. He was really strong, right? And he was dominating everybody, and he beat Rogerio. Then he came to the UFC. He had a couple good fights. He won the title, beat Lyoto. And then he's always been on and off. One guy he's always beat is Rogerio Nogueira. But the Nogueira brothers are brilliant in the sport of MMA. They're geniuses in the sport of MMA. And I think that Rogerio now is going to figure out how to get around those kicks. And I think he might even try to take Shogun down and try to submit him on the ground, because Rogerio has a very good guillotine. He's not as good as his brother Rodrigo in the ground arts, but he's still well versed in all the game. And I think if Shogun, it all comes down to Shogun. If Shogun comes in as how he is when he's motivated, he's confident, he's already beat this guy, Shogun's going to win it. If Shogun's off even a step, Rogerio is going to take it. And I think I'm betting on Rogerio on that one due to those facts.
See, for me, it all boils down to the science of aging for fighters. These are both older fighters. They've been through a lot together. They've been through some wars. I think it comes down to what's the last to go. And it really is the power. And if we look at their previous fights, it's always been shown that Shogun, who has had the ample side of the power, where not only does he outpower Lil Nog, but he outpowers him kind of heavily when it comes to the sheer contact force. Nogueira's got some hands, and his boxing's great, his movement's great, but like I said, they're getting older. Maybe he's got a hurt pivot foot. Maybe his hip's not landing the way it used to. And I do know that despite the injuries, the one thing that we did see from Hua in his last couple fights is he may have lost the speed, he may have gotten a little bit sloppy as far as the technique, but he still swings with power. So that's my only deciding factor in that. To be honest, I anticipate a war for that fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if either one or both fighters decide to retire after this fight. I think they're both going to leave it all in the ring, and I think that might be the only fight that has the potential to overshadow the main event, which is an awesome one. Darren Till and Robert Whittaker. What a main event! I'm so stoked. I'm a huge
bet on that one. Who do you picking on that one?
I picked Darren Till. I'm a huge Darren Till fan. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Whittaker as well. I love the Kiwi, but I think where Darren Till has him is exactly where Whittaker's going to want to take the fight. We saw Whittaker fight a more talented striker in Adesanya, and we saw him want to keep that standing. We saw him fight Yoel Romero where he likes to fight. And I think that's Whitaker's downfall. I think that's what got him out of the championship seat, is the fact that he wants to take the fight to you in your zone. And I don't think that'll bode well for him against Darren Till. Darren Till just swings with just so much heat, so much power, and he lands with so much bad intention that I don't know if and we don't know what kind of mental state Whitaker's in. You know, we saw him fighting Adesanya, and he didn't look like he kind of showed up to be game for that fight. There might have been some mental hurdles he was trying to conquer. I do know he was still recovering from some health issues, so that might have been a factor too. But I mean, that has a potential to be an awesome fight. You picked Whitaker.
Yes, Robert Whitaker. So there's a lot going on in this fight. I mean, if I was just to say a very general statement, Whitaker is better at MMA. Till is better in striking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I picked Whitaker in this fight. It's not necessarily who they fought against and how they performed against those guys. It's more in the terms of who has more skills, in my opinion. And I think that it's Whitaker. Whitaker has a very good takedown. He trains jiu-jitsu in the gi, so that means that he understands more of the technical aspects of going from A, B, C to D, following the guard pass to the side control to the submission, more so than Whitaker. And that's very dangerous for Whitaker. I mean, sorry, more so than Till.
Yeah.
Till, the thing about Till is, I mean, even Jorge Masvidal was saying that Till was the hardest puncher that he's ever fought. And that's pretty crazy, you know, that one of the best strikers in MMA now, Masvidal, is saying that about Till. But strategy, you know, I think goes to Whitaker. Who can get a flash knockout goes to Till. And you know, Whitaker is he almost reminds me of a point karate fighter, where he's very in and out with his jab. He lands those great leg kicks. He sets everything up beautifully, and then when he gets on the ground, he has all the answers. And Till is more like he's just a striker. You know, he's a great striker in MMA, and
he's the gorilla.
And he looks like a gorilla too, man. He looks like a white albino gorilla.
Yeah, there's I think where Till might get him in this fight. The reason I picked Till is because Whitaker has this thing where he lets the other fighter control the pace of the fight as much as he does. So with Whitaker, the fight is a dance. He's anticipating a 3 to 5 round dance where you're going to be back and forth. You have momentum. He's got momentum. You know, you guys are bobbing, weaving, swaying, working different angles in the pocket, working the clinch game differently, trying to wear on each other. You know, Whitaker is expecting a gentleman's fight, if you will. You know, a dance of momentum. When Till, I mean, I don't know how heavily trained he is for a 5-round fight. I don't know how disciplined his camp was, but I do know he's not looking to make it a 3 to 5 round dance. I do know he's trying to make it, you know, a Harlem Shake and then get out of there. He's not trying to make it a long night, especially not with somebody like Whitaker, who will let the fight ebb and flow to make sure that he finishes strong. That's one thing that Whitaker does amazingly, is piles it on you for a whole fight. It adds up. He piles it on you. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Holloway in the way that he'll pick you apart and just, like you said, a karate fighter. He'll just score on you and score on you and score on you until you make it to the 5th round. And you're like, oh shit, I'm behind 3 rounds to 1. Like he's super talented at making it a long war. But Till's also a good person who for ruining your plans. He's a good person to throw a wrench in your spokes, and that's why I picked Till.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. You know, I want to see Whitaker come out and get an early takedown. You know, he needs Till to respect his striking, but he needs to get an early takedown, and he needs to wear Till down, and he needs to drag him into those later rounds. And then at that point, he can have the type of fight that you're talking about back and forth. But he should not be doing that in the beginning round. I don't want to see him trading power with Till in the beginning round. I want to see him either be completely defensive or take down Till, wear him down, and start to work on his ground, get some respect. He needs to get Darren Till to respect him and show him how good he is. You know, a submission attempt, a big shot early. You know, and Whitaker's big thing has always been injuries. It hasn't necessarily been, you know, his athletic ability or techniques. It's his injuries have plagued him throughout his career. And, you know, sometimes he'll break his hand in the first round and things like that. So, you know, if that doesn't happen and he can wear Till down, I think he has a great chance of beating Darren Till. The big question mark in my mind is Till's ground game. We haven't seen too much in Till's ground game up to this point. I can't remember any time where he's submitted anybody or had any real good ground. I mean, he's defended okay, but that's really kind of my thing is like I think Whitaker's just on another level on the ground when you're talking about takedowns, cage control, submissions. So I think Whitaker has more tools in the toolbox.
I think Whitaker wins the fight if he takes a page out of Kamaru Usman's book and plays a little bit of you know, dominant wrestling positions, heavy clinch battling, a lot of weighing on him. Because Darren Till's not used to being in this weight class. If he can utilize his weight and really get him in like a nice single tie collar for a lot of the clinch, or maybe even get like a, you know, some Muay Thai or some double overs and really just lean on him, he can really take away Darren's shoulder power, especially if he gets a good double over and just leans on him for a better part of a minute or two. That'll take away a lot of his overhand power. So it's a good fight either way. I'm stoked. We're getting close to the end of the podcast. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the news that's going on in the MMA world. First of all, Colby Covington signed a contract to fight Tyron Woodley, but Tyron's yet to sign it. What do you think about that? I mean, this is a fight that we've wanted to see probably just as much as Tyron himself has wanted to have this fight. We know that he and Kobe do not like each other. We know it's a two-way street. But Tyron's still not signing. Do you think he might be a little shell-shocked after his last loss? Or what do you think it is, Don?
I mean, Tyron's the type of guy, he's becoming very weird about signing contracts and doing fights. He used to just be like the guy who would fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. But, you know, it's probably smart that he's not just jumping on it. And, you know, it's probably a contract negotiation. He wants to make $1 million instead of 100,000. But as far as the fight goes, Kobe's just so hungry. Kobe's so hungry. He's so competitive. And Tyron's lost a step in that department. And it's not just because he's in rap videos and doing whatever, you know, sipping Alizé or whatever it may be. It's because he's had all these championship fights. You know, he was the champion. He's lost it, X, Y, and Z. I think Kobe still has that chip on his shoulder where he really wants it. He's really mad about Kamaru. I think that Kobe's more hungry to beat Kamaru after Kamaru broke his jaw than Tyron even really wants to be in that fight again. And that's where I'm thinking that Kobe has the advantages: mindset, competitiveness, and the will to win. Not necessarily techniques, because we all know what Tyron can do. But I think that just the mindset aspect of it, I think Kobe's going to push harder in that fight. So I'm stoked about that. I would buy that, you know. And Kobe's he's a charismatic guy. He likes to talk smack. He's on the Trump bandwagon. He pisses people off. He's talking about building walls.
He's such a good heel. I mean, I don't like the elements that sometimes make the UFC look like the WWE, but man, is Colby Covington good at what he does. He is so good. Like, it kind of makes me think of like how intentional Henry Cejudo's cringe master stuff was too, because it's just, we're seeing a new, well thought out level of healing where it's even surpassed the WWE's level of theatrics, where these people are like almost acknowledging how silly it is simultaneously. I'm really enjoying it as much as I hate saying it. I'm really liking the drama that's kind of getting involved. I'm liking the rivalries. The only thing is that at the end of the day, some of these fighters are meatheads, and they're not very good at scripting for themselves or, writing their own comebacks and whatnot. However, Kobe Covington is ridiculously good at being terrible. Everybody hates his guts, and he knows it, and he plays into it, and he's really good at it. I really appreciate that from one performer to another. He's doing something that's provocative, and I like that.
What I like about Kobe too is, I saw him fight in Vegas on the Cormier and who did Cormier beat that night? I forgot who it was, but Kobe was like in the second fight of his UFC, and I saw him backstage. He was so hungry, and he ended up beating a fighter from Dagestan that night. And he has the same hunger and the will to win and just the dog in him that he's had from that first fight that I saw him live. And that's what I don't see with T Wood anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I don't see with T Wood. It's like Holyfield always said, once you sleep in the silk sheets, it's hard to wake up and run in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's where T Wood is. He's made the money and he's had the fame, and he's kind of over it. He doesn't want all this, but Kobe's just hungry for it. I could see Kobe come back after and have another better fight with Kamaru and figure out Kamaru. I just think he's so hungry.
Yeah, he didn't have a bad game plan as far as coming out for his first fight against Kamaru. Kamaru is an overwhelming fighter, and it was interesting to see a fighter that wasn't necessarily completely overwhelmed. I don't think Tyron wants that fight again. I don't think he wants that smoke. I think he knows that Kamaru Usman beats him 9 times out of 10. And that's just, unfortunately, for Woodley, where he's at in his career, where he has kind of an unclimbable wall ahead of him. And his best bet is to hope that somebody beatable beats him. I mean, I don't see Woodley ever winning that fight against Usman, especially the way it played out so dominantly. And, people want to say, oh, it doesn't look like Woodley was all there, or he didn't show up. If he didn't show up against a guy like Usman, then he doesn't deserve to hold a belt. Usman's a predator. He will tear you apart, and he'll do it slowly. That's one thing. That's the difference with apex predators. A normal level predator will attack to kill because they're hungry. An apex predator knows that nobody else is coming for him, so they'll do it slowly, like a bear. When a bear eats a fish, they don't kill it; they eat it living, and that's how Kamaru Usman fights. He eats you living, and I don't think Tyron wants that again. I think you're right, though. I think Kobe does want that. I think Kobe is the type of snake to bite while he's being bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, so that could be a good future fight for 2021, I think.
Mm-hmm. For sure. They got to make that fight, man. T Wood, sign the contract. Please, we want to see it.
Yeah, we want to see it so we can see what happens next. Also, before we go, let's talk about the Submission Underground events that happened. We had Submission Underground 16 just recently happened with what was the main event on that again? It was Mason versus sorry, I'm spacing. The big controversial finish to Submission Underground 16. Was it 16 or 17? I think it was 16. With Mason Fowler and Craig Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, huge controversial finish on that one. The verbal tap rule in Submission Underground grappling is apparently unclear. On most jiu-jitsu tournaments, a verbal tap is if you groan, grunt, scream, yell when somebody locks in a submission, that's considered an automatic tap. Whether or not you say tap, mate, whatever vernacular, uncle, whatever you use, a verbal tap is normally instituted anytime a person in a submission makes a verbal call out after they've been injured. Oh no, it looks like Don just jumped out of the podcast there. Well, you know what? How about this? We'll cover Submission Underground 16 and 17 next week. We're running out of time anyways. Make sure you check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/stoner versus stoner. That's VS stoner VS stoner. You can also check out our YouTube page. It's on our Facebook page to give you the link. We don't have a personalized one yet, just because we have to get 100 subscribers first. So make sure you subscribe, get us in the fold, help us out, guys. Tell your friends about this podcast, share it with your friends. You can catch me, Chino LaForge. Oh wait, he's back. He's back. Can we get him back? We'll see. Hey, he's back. I was just doing the closeout just because I figured we wouldn't be able to get you.
Battery died. So sorry, man.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. So, actually, let's just go ahead and finish our conversation with it. So the verbal tap rule, do you think it should be kept in submission underground grappling, or do you think all taps should be completed through the proper channels, I guess?
Yeah, no, verbal tap is a tap is a tap, and it's universal in jiu-jitsu. If you yell, then that's a tap. And the thing about Mason Fowler's submission over Craig Jones is that there was so much pain on it that he just had to yell. And I threw that move on a guy, my first submission underground victory, and the same thing. He screamed, but then he was smart enough to tap. And when you get the face crank, your teeth are cutting into your lip, and it's cutting your face. And then at the same time, your jaw is being compressed, and it feels like your jaw is going to get broken. And so you yell.
And he even did that little thing that you can do when you do a face crank, where he angled his forearm bone perfectly into the mouth. It was so nasty with that gable grip and everything he had on it, wrenching on him. Ooh, yeah, I'd verbally tap too. That shit hurts.
That's pain, brother. And yeah, of course. I mean, what person in the right mind's not going to scream? But that's what I was kind of surprised about Craig Jones, is that he yelled, because when you're hardened in the sport of jiu-jitsu, I don't know how I can say this, because Craig Jones is obviously, he has better accolades than me and everything, but your mindset has to be like, you're either going to go to sleep or you're going to tap, but you're not going to yell, right? So that leads me to believe he hasn't been in that position enough, and he just screamed because of the pain. And that's a tap, bro. That's a tap. I don't, if he screamed,
here's what I find interesting. He was warned about a yell previous in that match. Literally less than a minute before that, he was warned by the ref saying, "Careful, verbal taps will be considered." Like the ref said that to him at one point too. It makes me wonder, it might have been a part of his strategy.
Possibly, but I just think it was more or less just the pain of, I think he's the hammer more than he's the nail a lot of the times. And when he is the nail, it's in leg lock positions that he understands. But when someone's on your back and they're breaking your jaw and they're cutting your lip, I think he just yelled out of inexperience from that position. But that's a tap, any of these guys who are coming out saying, "Oh, he didn't tap, give him a rematch." The problem with Mason Fowler is that he's so good at stalling in the first 5 minutes and then winning in overtime. He did that he beat the guy who I beat, who's like pretty much unbeatable right now, Robert Jimenez, who's smoking everybody. He did the same thing. He nullified his game in the first 5, and then he subbed him out with a neck crank in overtime, and he did it to Craig. And so Craig is going to have to finish him fast in this next one, and he just has to keep his mouth shut. Don't yell, my brother.
Breathe from your nose. No key eyes, no nothing. Keep on inside. And then we also have submission like round 17 coming up. A lot of big matches on that. We're actually trying to get Don Stoner on this card. Is that still a possibility?
I think it's still a possibility. My minions are going after the promoters, and they're asking them, please, please, please put me on that card. And I hope anybody who wants to see action-packed jiu-jitsu, who wants to see submissions, submission defenses, who wants to see all of jiu-jitsu is going to please go and tell Submission Underground you want to see that fight, because this is my lifestyle. This is what I do. This is what I do from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. I do jiu-jitsu, and then even after hours, like now I'm talking about MMA. So yeah, if you can let them know that you want to see me go in that next card, that'd be super, super cool. And I will go against literally anybody. You know, the last time I was the main event of the prelims. So hopefully it doesn't matter if they put me on the first one. I don't care. I just want to compete, man. So shoot them a link. Let them know. I'll compete against anybody. Diego Sanchez liked one of my Instagram posts, so I know he's out there. Diego, come on, my brother.
Oh, he wants the nightmare, the dream, Diego Sanchez. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Go on Submission Underground Grappling's Facebook page. Go on one of their posts for the Submission Underground 17. Make sure you mention Don Stoner in your comments. Tell them that you got to see Don. You want Stoner. You need more Stoner. Stoner, Stoner, Stoner. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-binaries and zims, zers, hims, hers, thems, theys, we're going to call it a night. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Chino LaForge. I'm one half of Stoner vs. Stoner. You can find me on all social media programs at Chino Bra. That's ChinoBrah. That's for YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Hotmail, AOL, whatever is left. Don Stoner, where can our fans find you?
Find me on Instagram, dstoner_LWJJ, or Don Stoner on Facebook, or Stoner vs. Stoner. That's where you can find me.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week. We're going to discuss the fights that would have just happened. So it'll be UFC 174, the Fight Night 174. We're also going to talk about 175, as well as UFC 252, Stipe versus Cormier coming up. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great night. Aloha.